Right. Perfect. So, welcome to the Transformation Talk. And this is actually a bit of a special one because we don't have Mike today. Replacing Mike with Rochelle. And I don't want to introduce you. I want you to introduce yourself. So, why are you here? What's this episode about? Talk to us.
Perfect. So I'm Rochelle and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. This is just a little bit about my story because, as we've spoken about, this is just sort of my life has gone in full circle. So, yeah, that's what this is about.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have had quite numerous passionate kind of voice notes talks about
Mhm.
how you've been getting on over the recent months, how
Yeah.
the society looks. I want you to just tell me a little bit about your journey. Start me at the beginning. Let everyone who's listening get a better picture and understanding before we move on to some other sort of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, growing up, my mum and dad were both alcoholics, struggled with the drinking thing. And as a child, you don't really understand anything. So, your behaviors and you're learning from them. Obviously, no drinking as a child, but I just couldn't understand why that was a priority over my well-being, my welfare, my school attendance. I couldn't fathom in my head what was wrong. And I do remember having conversations with my dad was very in and out. So a lot of domestic violence there. There was a lot happening. And my mum, it's sad because I used to say to her as a child, I don't understand. It's like my good mum goes away and my bad mum comes in. She just wouldn't remember things. She wouldn't, look after me properly. And she was a binging alcoholic. So binging is obviously when it happens in very sporadic moments of time. It's not wake up every day, but when that binging starts, there's no stopping it. So that's sort of the childhood aspects of it, really. My mum did try her best to get sober on numerous occasions, and very unfortunately, in 2007, she had a fall due to that, and sadly lost her life to a brain hemorrhage. So the impact of alcoholism on my life, on the life of my parents, it's just it blows my mind that the stuff is still legal.
Yeah.
I know, and it's just insane. I know we spoke before, didn't we, about anti-abuse, and I sort of told you things about that. So with me, I find alcoholism is uh, it's a mental disorder. It's like any addiction. And with anti-abuse, what it does is it's a medication to take away the cravings of alcohol. It doesn't necessarily fix the problem. It's more of a deterrent than anything else. But when you do drink on it, my mum was put on it by her doctors. My mum's went to rehabs and she was put on it. But what happens is there's nothing to stop that physical urge. It's just to stop or create a problem when you do drink. So she'd have blackouts, fits. Oh, it was just horrible to see your mum so helpless as a child because you cannot physically help them yourself. So when my life changed, really, I was 12 years old. I was at home with my mum, and I remember this night clear as day because the electric had run out, and I had family friends that were willing to sort of take me on board. Social services were aware of the situation. Obviously, my mum had been arrested for drink driving, just in a really bad way, just lost, really, really lost. And I think that that's the sad side. Everyone sort of thinks that, some sort of alcoholism goes towards violence, which is definitely more my dad's side, that he struggled with. My mum's was just so emotional, like no curtains open, really into herself, depressed, didn't want to leave the house, just in an awful state of mind. So that night, we'd run out of electric. It's obviously all my fault, bear with me, because you're never to blame when you're the alcoholic. It's really important. You're always forever the victim. And I just had a text message on my little Nokia 3310 just going, go to this address, you'll be safe. Off I went. And that's when I went to my foster families, as they are now. And we're still in touch, which is amazing. But yeah, I went there and I was able to see my mum for the few coming months. Foster plans were in place. Things were, this is where Rochelle's going to live from now on. She's just in a safer environment. She can still have contact with her mum and her dad. My dad was on a sober stint at this point. He'd gone to live with his parents. So, I was able to have contact with both of them. And I remember going to see my mum one afternoon after school, and she'd got a black eye and a lump on her head. And I just couldn't believe that even losing your own child, you still can't wake up. You
Yeah.
don't want to wake up from it. And I was so angry, and I was only 12, and I just ran back home, and I didn't want to see her. I wanted nothing to do with her. And then a few weeks later, I'd come home from school, and I was meant to be going out that evening. And my foster family said, we've got to go over to hospital. We've just got to go for a meeting about something. I thought, that's so weird. Like, it's just such an odd thing on a Tuesday. So we've gone over, and there were social services there, and they just said, Rochelle, I'm really sorry, but your mum's had a really bad fall and she hasn't got very long left to live. And hearing that at 12 is just the most heartbreaking thing, because there's nothing more that you can do. That's it. And I wanted to run out the window. I tried to climb out a window. I was screaming, hollering. And I went into this hospital room, and my mum's there, obviously all sort of wired up and everything. And the thing is about your brain and a brain hemorrhage is it just shuts down your organs bit by bit. So your last thing to go when you die is your hearing. So she could hear me, and I was just like, I love you. I'm sorry. I've always loved you. I'm just so sorry. I'm so sorry. And my dad was there as well, and that was the first bit of peace in my childhood, in that hospital room with my parents. And that's sad. Like, I look back on that and I just think, what a sad thing to have. And it's such a shame, because the pair of them have got the best sense of humor, always laughing, and to think that it just ruined them. And then obviously in years to come later, it trickled onto me. So but no, it was sad at the time. Obviously my mum, I don't want this to ever come across like I hated my mum. I never hated my mum. I hated her addiction. I never hated my mum. And obviously being so young, and my mum loved, like, my friends, we'd all have sleepovers together. To think that my mum's funeral was a first for a lot of those kids at the time as well. So it was just a crazy moment. My mum died on a Friday, and I was back in school on the Tuesday. My foster family were really, really close, like really into installing in me, like, attendance, make sure you're there, and I think that was also so I could get back into normality. I don't think it was ever come on, let's not waste time, get back in. So yeah, and I fell in love with performing arts, and I had a brilliant childhood. I said a lot of bad things about them when I was younger, in my early 20s, but now I'm so grateful for them. I'd say college and stuff was when it first sort of started to go a bit wrong with alcohol.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that was because everyone's legal to drink, isn't they? And I just think, yeah, let's go out. um, but could never say no, or never. I hated it growing up, loved it as I got older, and it's just I can't really describe it. It was just like this feeling of this is it's like being, it's like an internal itch that was scratched. I was like, oh, this is amazing. This feels incredible. I love this feeling. I want to feel like this forever.
Was
Um,
sorry,
but
do you
yeah,
remember
go ahead.
your first drink?
I wouldn't say I remember it first. Well, I'd say there was like a collective. So I was allowed to drink Lambrini. I was allowed to sort of have that, house parties, and then it moved up to Malibu. And I just loved the taste of it. And I was always the one to sort of drink the fastest. Um, and I think as kids, we just sort of knocked about with alcohol pops, because my mum and her friends used to have like house parties and
Yeah.
stuff. And you just used to rob their alcohol. And it was all just a little bit of a laugh. And, we were very unattended. So it was, but I don't remember the first time I knew that it was a problem, because I think that as you start drinking, your whole reality changes. So if the more you drink, the more it becomes normal. See what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So it just sort of, it all becomes your new reality. But clubbing and partying was always fun. And then I had my own flat in my early, because when you're fostered, when you're younger, I'm sure, I don't know if it's the same up and down the country, but you get your first flat. Now, no one sort of taught me how to run it. I had my mum's inheritance. I had no job. I was just living the dream. Like I was just out all the time. And it was a very social thing at the time. And then when I was on my own, no one could stop me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, jobs were affected massively. I'd, I just wouldn't go in half the time. Hated it, moved here, there, and everywhere. Hated being on my own, but loved it at the same time because I'd be able to. I'd say, like, in the last 2 years is when it really took a turn, a physical and mental turn for me, alcoholism. Because you're doing the same shit but wanting the same result, like wanting a different outcome.
Yeah.
And the thing is when you push your point to of that tolerance, if I was to drink now what I drank a year ago, I'd be dead. There's no question about it at all.
Okay. So
So
obviously you, let's say 12, 16, you're going to college,
yeah.
you've got your own flat, it's one more of a social thing. So for you at that point, was drink purely a social thing, or was you subconsciously maybe using it obviously to numb the past of things as well? Was it a combination? What was the reason for drink for you?
Yeah, I think because all of my friends were doing it, we all loved going out. Um, and I just think that I always took it too far.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh, it's because my mum's died. That's why I'm like so emotional about it. And it was a combination at first, but then I would not fear going out on my own. I wouldn't fear going to the pub by myself because I used to work in one. So college, I was still doing my dancing. So I would skip dance classes to go to the pub, or I wouldn't see my friends to go and hang out with these men in a pub because they're drinking. That was normal. That was fine. That was not a problem because I worked in a pub, so everyone knew me. So I
Yeah.
thought that all these people were my friends. So yeah, it slowly it morphed itself more than anything.
Okay. And what about, obviously a lot of people clearly knew the past. They knew about, I'm assuming they knew about your mum, your dad, they knew
Hmm.
your life and how it'd
Yeah.
be growing up. So what sort of impacted friends around you have on drinking? Did they not see a point where they went, Rochelle, this is getting a bit, bit far for you, or did they not try and alter the course you were on?
Yeah, of course. I mean, a lot of people were just like, oh, you're becoming a bit of a nightmare, mate, to go out with. I was like, what do you mean? I'm just having fun. Like, I'm fine. They're like, no, Michelle, like, you're drinking to the point of blackout and, you're embarrassing. And it wasn't, I mean, my foster family sort of let me be an adult. But because we'd fallen out, sort of, I just, I didn't, I didn't want to listen. And I
Yeah.
think when I always believe that I've had this sort of alcoholism in me regardless. I mean, it's an allergy, it's a physical and mental allergy to alcohol. Um, and the thing is about it, it just makes me, I didn't want to be part of reality. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't want to, be around it. 16, I'm self-harming massively. So that was obviously before I could even drink. So I just hated myself. And I remember just being in my room and crying and just being like, I hate my life. And I can't understand why I could look at myself and hate myself, and that's like 15, 16. And I talked to my foster family about it and they're like, oh, come on, like you're okay, like you're going to be all right. And I think that they felt guilty at some point because of this 12 years of carnage, because they're like, oh, why didn't I do more? There's nothing that anyone could have done. I was unstoppable. I was going to do it whether anyone was going to stand by me or not. So I was going to let loose. I was going to be a loose cannon regardless of what people say.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
So
obviously, was there a specific turning point or like experience that kind of solidified your decision to get and stay sober? What was the kind of turning point there? Because you've clearly had, we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours and days
yeah.
experiences of what you've been through. Because I know we spoke a little bit prior to obviously this. Obviously, we've worked together, and your life isn't the normal life that most
Mm,
people or most children should come up with.
yeah.
And to still be sitting here now talking about recovery, I think it's an absolute incredible feat on your behalf. And I do think it's very
Thank you.
inspiring for other people. I personally have never really had a relationship with alcohol here or
Mm,
there. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't really care for it. I don't enjoy the taste of it. So it is hard for someone like me to even put myself in your shoes.
hmm.
And I haven't really got an addictive personality, maybe to Call of Duty, something like that. I like gaming. But, you know, there's a lot of things I see in you, like you look your sense of humor, kind of like you seem to bat everything away with humor, which I think's brilliant because I do
Mm.
the same. But on obviously on your journey, you obviously got to a point where you said, I need to sort this out. What was that kind of specific turning point, if you know it?
Y- Yeah, so it's funny actually because when you obviously I work a 12-step program. So when you sort of go into the rooms and you sit and you listen to people, and some people say they have a rock bottom, some people say I do it because of my kids, and I always argue and say honestly, I'm telling you this now, Nick, you have to do it for yourself. There is nothing that can make you want to do it. You have to find that self-worth, and that does come with time.
Yeah.
But I'd say I was in a relationship last year. I won't name him or anything, but he's a really great person. He's a wonderful person, brilliant dad, brilliant human being. um and I would just sell this lie to people that I was okay, just a bit of a party girl, and it just spiraled out of control to the point where I just wasn't prioritizing him. And the worst pain that I could ever put someone else through was not know how to look after myself. And, he saw that I wasn't present with him. Any relationship I've had, they could not soothe me in the way that alcohol could. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And it's sad because some of those people, some of them are assholes, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna sit here and gas them all up. But some of them had really good hearts, and he especially amazing, and we got on really well as good friends as well. So he just sort of said to me, you know what, Rush, like, I'm out, mate, like I can't do this. He's got a child. It's totally understandable. Because I wasn't showing up, and that's like in a physical sense. I just was like, oh, I can't come today, I don't feel well, oh, I'm not into it, like I'll just leave me alone, because I could drink alcoholically on my own and no one could judge me, and it would be fine. I'd love to live like that, just in the shelter of my own shit and my own depression. um and then as he left me, at first I thought, freedom, my god, I can just go really ham at this. And this is when I say, like, last July up until February this year, it was downhill. I would hurt myself physically. There's pictures of me with like black eyes where I'd fallen. You know, I just kept hammering it down, and I was bleeding from anywhere. I remember waking up one morning, sipping a bottle, because I remember just cracking this bottle open and just swigging from the bottle and just shutting my eyes just to get it down me. And then I'd go through the day and I'd throw up and there'd be blood, or, everywhere else that things come out of. It's just horrendous. It's horrendous. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because I just can't believe it's my life. And I woke up one morning, beginning of February this year, and I just thought, I can't live like this anymore. I'm going to die. It was pushing me to the point of trying to take my own life. I was self-harming again. I honestly thought to myself, but alcohol has never woken up in the morning and told me it doesn't love me anymore. It's never woken up and left me. Um, there was a lot of people around me as well that I would be getting it from. I actually had a WhatsApp message the other day from a company that I must have used saying, well, we're providing alcohol from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Drop it to your house. So I must have used them, but I woke up and I just thought, I've got to do this because no one's coming to save me, kids. So I just need to get up and do it. And don't get me wrong, it's been challenging, it's been hard. I think sometimes my story sort of sell this big story about sobriety and how it's wonderful and it changes your life, and it does so many beautiful things. I'm 281 days sober today, so it's done me wonders. And that's not just, obviously it's come from myself, but you have to surround yourself with good people that want the same thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
you mentioned the 12-step
yeah.
model program that you've took part in.
Hmm.
A lot of people would argue or they discuss that it's very outdated, it's ineffective. What is your opinion on it? Because I know a lot of people who have struggled with alcohol, or even in Mike's episode on the Transformation Talk, we talked about his gambling addiction, and he went to like
Yeah.
AA meetings and things, and he found that was an incredible thing for him to be part of. I know a lot of people would argue the other side, but what's your opinion of the 12-step model?
Well, it's brought me here to this moment, and people say that it's outdated. it's a very old, AA is very old. I mean, it was published in 1939. Of course, it's going to be quite old. I'm on the book that I have is the fourth edition. Obviously, it's adjusted over time. It's about finding a God of your understanding. So I feel like you do good, you get good. I've always felt like that in the world, and you can interpret things in ways that fit you. It's a very adaptable program. It works. It works for a variety of different people. I've sit in these rooms with people from all walks of life. Not everyone's a council estate kid like me. Some people have got massive high-end jobs in Canary Wharf. It's from the top all the way to the bottom. I just think it gives me purpose. I have a fantastic sponsor who, goes through the book with me. The steps work. I mean, a big thing about the step work, and I think when you go into sobriety or any sort of addiction you're trying to recover from, you're filled with so much guilt and shame and regret, and you wake up and you think, oh, I'm a bad person, I'm a horrible person, I'm horrendous, and you're doing that sober because you physically cannot pick up that drink. I mean, picking up a drink is not picking up a drink, sorry, is one thing. Working on yourself is a totally different thing. It helped me to write my amends to people that meant the most to me, and every single one that I've written has come from the heart, and it's been honest and it's been truthful. And I, especially, the ex-boyfriend I was saying to you about, I wrote a really a deep amends to him, and he sent me a beautiful reply back. We just wish each other nothing but the best. Sometimes when I first got sober, I was like, that's it, he's going to come back to me, everything's going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
If you love something, let it go. And I think that's, if it comes back, great. If it doesn't, wasn't meant to be. I think that's the best way to sort of look at it. He is aware I'm doing a podcast. Whether he listens to it or not, I don't know. But a lot of people who I've written amends to, my family especially, that was a really hard one, because there was a lot of things I said that I really didn't mean.
Yeah.
And it's not about a bad person trying to be good. It's about a sick person trying to get well. Which is, yeah, it's a powerful program, because I can sit and I can feel the energy of other people. And we spoke about people taking certain things on top of it. I used to be quite judgmental as well. I know there's a lot of people in recovery that still smoke cannabis or do other things, and I wrote a Facebook status, what's so many embarrassing stuff. I wrote a Facebook status like, well, if you're still taking all of this, you're not really sober. I wrote it drunk. Oh, well, you're not really sober, and I'm not. But yeah, I think everyone's recovery is different. I'm not here to sort of preach AA. It's worked for me. I think surround yourself with people that you need, that get it, that have been through it. Waking up and you're in sick, yeah, perfect, great, you're in the right place. A lot of questions I get as well are like, would you always call yourself an alcoholic? I always will be an alcoholic. There's nothing that's going to change that. There's a lot of things I don't like to put online about it. I try not to go into AA too much, because you've got to be so cautious of it when you preach about it. Someone might see this or see some of my posts and go, well, it worked for her, why is it not working for me? So it's a balance. There's a lot of things online that shouldn't be, that people that I've had to unfollow from TikTok because it winds me up.
TikTok in particular it's quite a moment, I think. You see a lot of people who, I've had this conversation with quite a few people. It's not just from like an alcoholism point of view, even states of, there's people who are recording themselves in mental homes. What would you call them?
Like psychiatric wards.
Psychiatric wards. Sorry, yes. I can't understand how that's being allowed, but I don't mean just from the home's point of view, the ward's point of view. I mean that from TikTok's point of view as well. And I think it's quite a dangerous place to be, especially if you're someone who's struggling with anything at all. You did mention, obviously, I think there's a term for what you said about people still taking cannabis and taking other substances during sobriety. I think they call it California sober, where you can be partly sober, but you can still use cannabis, you can still use other substances to kind of calm the substance abuse addiction you have. You did say there that you used to be judgmental about it. What's your thoughts on it now? Do you feel like it is very person dependent? Do you think it helps?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of think, like, who the fuck am I to judge other people, And I'd hate for someone to look in on my life, and because I don't touch anything, and I can say that gospel hand on heart, I don't smoke cannabis, I obviously don't drink, I used dabbled in cocaine, but for me personally, it had to be all or nothing. There was nothing at all. Cannabis has never been my thing anyway.
Yeah.
I was definitely more of an upper, more than someone that wants to mellow out. I just wanted the high all the time. So
Yeah.
I think, if it works for them, it works for them. Being completely teetotal has helped me understand myself. I mean, am I sober because I still like, I don't know, people pull out the pettiness, and I think with online and social media, people have to find something. This post, for example, might go out and someone will be offended by something that I've said.
100%.
Everyone has to be offended by something, or
Yeah.
find a reason to be upset, and it's silly, because this is, quite frankly, it's, as much as I'm sharing it with everyone, and I hope that it can help someone, or someone that's like, oh, I can relate to. I always think of the similarities, not the differences,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people that still feel the same way. I've made a lot of friends through TikTok, but yeah, I think you're right when you say about TikTok, and there's definitely a safeguarding issue, I think, with this, with filming yourself in a psychiatric unit. I don't think it's right. There's also a lot of people that do sober groups, that I sort of had to come out of because it was just too intense and too much. Relapse is part of recovery, absolutely, and I would use that to my full advantage. I'm like, you can't shout at me, I'm in a relapse, but but there's people that justify it. And because TikTok's open 24/7, scroll, you can dead scroll, especially when I used to be on it all the time. Scroll, 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 scroll. You've got to be so careful what you say, because there are so many vulnerable people out there that believe in it, and you're justifying it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's okay. Maybe you're not that much of a heavy drinker. There's a guy in particular. It's so sad because I see him, it's almost every weekend, and he's live for like 24, 48 hours at a time, and he's just hammered. And I don't know why apparently he's got moderators in this chat. Um, but I don't understand how it's allowed. And I think people just need to be a bit more mindful of others, because I have to stop watching it, because even now, I still find it quite triggering, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know that there are people out there, Nick, and there always will be, that just enjoy the taste of alcohol and like the feeling it gives them. That's fine. But when it starts to become a form of abuse and self-harm and self-neglect, like, it's just not the one.
Yeah. I mean, quite a controversial question, I suppose, but
Sure.
do you believe addiction is primarily a choice or a disease? What do you where would you categorize it?
I would say it's a disease. It's a mental disorder. That's just my personal opinion. There's no way. I don't think it's a choice. I'm quite protective of it, because not only have I watched my mum and dad struggle with it, I've seen myself go through it. My friends have been affected, and one thing I always used to say was, it's not affecting you, it's just affecting me, don't worry about it. But it's a ripple effect. One addict is a drop in a puddle, it ripples out to everyone around them.
Yeah.
And it's a brain disorder, because I can think about times when I'll be craving a drink, and my palms will start sweating, and my feet will start sweating, and my mouth will start salivating for it. I don't think it is a choice. I think it's an allergy, which is really important thing to remember, is that living life sober is hard.
Yeah.
Whatever takes people out of it, whether it be food, gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever. Um, it is hard to live sober, because you just want a little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And even now, some people say to me, like, oh, like, maybe in a couple of months' time, or when you hit a year, maybe you'll be able to just have a couple of glasses. I know I can't do that. You wouldn't say to people, oh, who's addicted to crack, you wouldn't say, like, oh, maybe you can have a couple of pipes, a couple of blasts on the old pipe in the future. Maybe you could have a couple of lines, just a couple of slots, mate. It's not a problem. But because alcohol is it's sold everywhere, it's out there, it's, there's adverts for it on the telly coming up to the festive season. People don't seem to understand it, but I definitely do think it is a disorder,
It's
100%.
it's definitely glamorized. The media, social media,
Mm-hmm.
well, I went to a party on Saturday. I don't really drink, so I drive. Most of the time I'm taking people back and forth. And people, I actually had this conversation with Mike before I
Mm.
came on this, and it wasn't anything to do with the episode itself. It was actually to do with the party. And he said, some people use it obviously for the anxiety feeling of meeting new people or being around people they haven't seen for a long time. And I've never been one of them. But
Mm.
that's so normalized to say to someone, "Oh, just have a drink to relax," in an environment of people you don't know. And I think that's quite a scary kind of thought process because as you said,
Yeah.
alcohol, if someone hasn't drunk before, you don't know the effects it's going to have on them.
Hmm.
I'd definitely say it is far too glamorized. I think you wouldn't see an advert for cocaine on the telly, would you? Do you know what I mean? And we
No.
know they can have, if not, you know, I haven't checked the stats, but I've got to assume alcohol abuse is a lot higher than cocaine abuse because it's so normalized and it's so obviously available. But you
Yeah.
put those sort of adverts on the telly. I mean, obviously, when you see them adverts on the telly, does it do anything to your brain? Does it do anything to you? Does it anger you? Does it kind of make you want to drink? What's the
I I don't know, because and it's I can have that argument as well with alcohol-free drinks. Um, when you use alcohol to the point that I did, and I look at them and I think it's nice for those people. Like that's the only thing that sort of crosses my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice, but I just know that I'd be lying if I said I hadn't gone through the sober journey and thought, oh, I'd love a glass of wine, or oh, I'd love a beer. But my head instantly takes me to, yeah, but that means you're not going to work, and that means you're going to lose your job, and that means you're going to be homeless, because I know that one is too many and one is not enough. Um, I remember when I was dabbling in cocaine as well. I remember the first two people I did a line with, and they said to me, clear as day, just sniff that and it will sober you up. What? And these people were parents, these people had kids, like it was just insane. But it takes good people, all sorts of things like that, but alcohol especially, it's destroying families. And because it's and the insanity of it, this is what I mean. Like, I was seeing an advert, a nice little Bailey's Christmas advert, and my foster mum, she's so funny, I've been staying at hers last night, and she was like, oh no, we don't need any of that, do we, Rochelle? Like, no, because that's not strong enough. That wouldn't even touch the size. There's not enough drinking Bailey. Do you think I'm gonna get off my head on Bailey? She must be joking. But um I used to drink 2 liters of rum a day, mum. Like, that's nothing. That's not even a starter. um but yeah, I mean, it's horrible because I know that there's people that, them adverts come up, and when you think about different family lives, you must think, oh, well, let's get a bottle of that for Christmas. Oh yeah, lovely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Their auntie and uncle's coming over. But then there's also people that are sat in squalor, that are scraping together their pennies, watching that advert to go and get a last drink.
yeah.
So, I mean, the drink aware stuff, what is that about? Alcohol's so manipulative. It's a compulsive lying disorder, because I know that I've bullshitted. I remember going to therapy and being like, oh, yeah, I'll do a drink diary, whatever. Well, what you've actually drank, we'll just put a quarter of that down. I would hide bottles around my room. I'd hide bottles under my bed. It's only me that went in there. I'd hide bottles in sinks, bags, like under sinks, handbags. So I wouldn't say the advert itself triggers me. The effect of what I know what would happen if I drank it
Yeah.
scares me.
Yeah. I mean, do you think society puts too much focus on rock bottom moments for people? Before obviously, do we think we could get people to seek help sooner as opposed to 'cause you hear all the time, let's Rochelle's at rock bottom, and
Mm.
literally at that moment where people are saying like, let's do something about it. Do you feel like people could be doing more prior, or do you think it is an internal personal choice?
I think it is an internal personal choice. However, it's hard with the mental health in this campaign is shot to shit, and like in this country, sorry, is shot to shit. I remember speaking to a certain charity, including Samaritans at one point. They didn't give me this advice. She rang me because I'd obviously tried to take my own life, and she said, well, the reason why you feel like that is because you're drinking alcohol. I said, well, yeah, because I hate myself.
Mm.
And she went, well, maybe you should just stop. I think we need better training
Yeah.
for a better education sort of service there, and to just educate people on it, because it's getting sober at 29 or at any age is hard. I always thought it was for the older people that have really ruined their life, fucked up, can't go back, that's it, no wife, no kids, no nothing. But my rock bottom was accumulated of so many, so it has to come from a point of self. I'd say advise people if you're worried about their drinking, definitely reach out. And don't be scared. Going back to the AA program, I think go into stuff with an open mind. You never know, and there is going to be someone out there that gets it.
Yeah.
That's my next sort of step in my career path anyway. I want to sit with younger people, like early 20s,
That was my
and
next
just,
question was,
all right.
like moving forward, do you feel like this is something that you can really put your energy and efforts into with career? And, is that a step you want to take?
Definitely. I think it would be a waste to not.
Yeah.
And I've everyone's going to have an opinion. I come from quite a small town. Some people probably watch my stuff. I've had not videos. I've had messages from people I went to school with that were like, "Oh my God, I had no idea that this was your sort of life." Or I've had people that have been like, "Well done, and thank you for sharing it." There'll be people out there that I just think, "Oh, she's just rabbiting on again," which is fine. That's not a problem. Not everything you put out there is meant to relate to everyone. And I'll say it before, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. To some people, you're a glass of champagne. To others, you're a cup of lukewarm piss. It doesn't matter. It's whatever fits you. If you find something, you get something from it, great. If you don't, you don't. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to go into. I currently work in sounds amazing, doesn't it? I work in the gambling industry at the minute. But gambling was never my thing. I was always too broke because I was always too busy buying drinks. So yeah, never had money to spin. But yeah, and I can see their side as well. So addiction is definitely something I want to go into as a career. Going back to TikTok about that actually, because I know that there's people that make money from the content that they post,
Yeah.
and that's great that they can share that and they do make money from it. However, you've got, I mean, I don't get enough views or anything to make money from my content. I'm not interested in making money from TikTok. Um, it's it's sad because there's people that sort of, it can be quite a predatory place when you go into sobriety. Because you're most vulnerable, you're ripped bare, you've got nothing left, you're on your fucking knees and you're like, I just need help. I think some people take that a little bit too far. They seem to impose on people that are going through shit, like, oh, come join this will help you, this will work, this is, it's all wonderful. I think that sitting with people in a physical space and interacting and feeling that energy in the room is so much better than sitting in a WhatsApp group
Yeah.
and telling people how you feel. Oh, I feel like shit today. Da, 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 da. I've had to pie off counselors before because they were just like, oh, let's do things via Zoom. No, you're going to sit me in a room and I'm going to tell you because I can't. This, obviously, fine. But I think with help, obviously, COVID didn't help people. A
Yeah.
lot of situations, a lot of heavy drinkers sort of came out of the woodwork in that. People were getting, going on Zoom calls, but it's hard because you're still so isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose with any sort of addiction, it becomes an isolation anyway, because obviously it's
Mm,
personal for yourself, isn't it? So obviously COVID was never going to help. The lockdowns were never going to help.
mm,
I know a lot of people loved it. Personally, it didn't impact me in a negative way.
yeah.
From a business standpoint, it was quite good as well.
Mm,
But I can understand people who were struggling and people who don't have loads of friends and family as well. I'm quite a family person. There's quite a lot of people around me at all times. So yeah, even then, I felt quite lonely at the best of times. So I can
yeah.
imagine how someone who was struggling felt. I mean, we've got about a minute left here on this
Perfect.
particular part. Summarize to me quite quickly what your most proudest moments of yourself is at the moment.
Um, oh gosh, my proudest moments. Not picking up a drink this morning. It is only just for today. So yeah, I'm proud of myself for doing that. I'm proud of myself for almost completing my 12-week therapy course. I've been asked to be a peer mentor at the place I go to now when I get to a year sobriety. So yeah, I'm just proud of myself. I'm proud of myself that each day I wake up and I'm grateful to be around people that love and care about me. That's what I'm most proud of.
No, I love that. I think it's a great time to actually end it there as well, purely because
Hmm.
you've given so much information there, and I think anyone who is listening, I think has to be proud of you for what you've done, and I think you need to really, I know you already are proud of yourself, but really need to realize how amazing you've done. Um,
Oh.
yeah, thank you for obviously taking time today.
Oh no, thank you. And thank you for giving me the time and the space for this. So I'm really grateful for you.
No,
Thank you.
always. We'll do another one as well. You know.
Yeah, perfect.